the people, by the people. For the culture.
Peace, peace, peace. Jumbo. Welcome to the Vital Hoops podcast on Black Power Media. My name is Fernando Cardenas, aka International XB. I am your host. This is episode number 64. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe. Check out vitalhoops.net. Check out blackpowermedia.org, and we appreciate the support. Today, we have a very special guest. Our guest is from Chi-Town, but he's currently living in Oakland by way of New York City. He is of West African and Blackfoot ancestry. Now, this brother has been putting in a lot of work in our communities for many years. He is co-founder and co-director of Esfera, Liberation Through Land, Food, Media, and Medicine, Celestial Church, which is a community of healers, medicine carriers, musicians, artists, and activists. Earth Amplified, which is about shifting global consciousness through ancestral memory and wisdom, music, media, etc. The work spans from recovery support from addiction with the unhoused in Oakland, to indigenous international hip-hop, to elemental activism, transformative justice, and much more. It's an honor to have him on the show, AshEL SeaSunZ Eldridge. AshEL, welcome to the Vital Hoops podcast. I appreciate you taking the time, brother. How you doing?
Good. Just in Cali.
Yeah,
Excited for this talk.
Okay, no doubt, man. Yeah, excited as well. Appreciate you coming through. Let's get right into it, man. I'd love for you to tell the audience a little bit more about you, and specifically, when did you become one with hip hop?
Oh, wow, yeah. So, I'm born in Chicago, and then I went to school upstate New York in University of Rochester, and then did a bunch of music in New York. Moved out to Cali, went to Institute of Transpersonal Psychology.
Okay.
Studied like shamanism, Taoism. But, in Chi-Town I grew up with, my brother was a house DJ.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember that. And also just, growing up in the hood, just listening to hip hop, listening to music.
Yeah.
It was part of the fabric.
Yeah. When did first of all, do you call yourself plant-based or vegan, or what term would you use?
Terms and concepts get kind of loaded.
Yeah.
Plant-based for sure, yeah.
Okay.
And basically with that, I remember I was in school and I was like broke in undergrad. I remember one time, this is like, I had dabbled with different diets and things like that before then, and I remember my freshman year, sophomore year, I think, I just went straight raw vegan because it was cheaper. It was you in line and you can see all the veggies, and I'm like, man, the plate was just like cheaper to get that plate without all the other things. And then I felt really good for a while. I lost a lot of weight, so that was to the dismay of a lot of folks who had seen me come in as a football jock, as a sports jock. Okay. After that, because I grew up playing a lot of sports too. Yeah. And everybody's like, but I felt clean and clear, I felt on point. So I knew that was definitely something to the ritual of food and eating for sure.
No doubt, man. So when did the plant-based and healthy living come into the picture for you? And also, was it directly linked with hip hop culture for you, or not really at first? And how did that process go?
There was songs like Beef, KRS One. There was different, people that was illuminating me. But also, I did, Beasley Men's Group. There was just like I went to a magnet school in Chicago called Beasley Academic Center, and that spot was, it was a men's group on Saturdays, and I really hated getting up on Saturdays. But they kind of put me on to, Afrocentric culture, teachings, and all of that. But ultimately, I saw my grandmother had to get a leg amputated because there's diabetes, they say, running my family. So I noticed that, all the barbecues and all the, everything that was going down in the family was sort of contributing. That sort of put two and two together. And then I decided to switch it up a little bit. And also I had experiences like my aunt would come in on Thanksgiving, and she was a part of the Panther Party.
Okay.
And she would say stuff about Thanksgiving, and she has a lot of commentary about things, so I was like questioning the turkey and why we eat it. And so just do like, discovery, knowledge of self, and seeing what really works.
No doubt.
Impact on the environment, impact on other species too. So it was, a progression development.
For sure. Yeah, appreciate that. I know reggae music is also part of your life, you know what I mean? Can you speak a little bit about that, like reggae? Because to me personally, I'm also, hip hop artist, activist, but reggae is also a huge part of my life. I love reggae music, and I feel like they're linked, I kind of feel like, hip hop, I kind of feel like, there's no hip hop without reggae, you know what I mean? So how did reggae come into your life, and was that also, through hip hop? And talk to me a little bit about Earth Amplified. Was that your beginnings in music, or did you start solo, or how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was in this hip hop reggae group called Wisdom when I came out to Cali, and we toured. We did a lot out of the reggae circuit, and I remember we opened up for KRS-One, and we opened up for Steel Pulse, Warrior King. I've even opened up for Midnight. One of my favorite birthday was just yesterday. Von Benjamin, rest in power. Yeah, I mean reggae. I mean Ital is vital, so the culture, it's a way of life. Rastafari, Bob Marley, for example, his message reaches a lot of people. I got Bob Marley right here, like Exodus, the original.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I got mine's back here too. I got a Uprising.
Yep, no, I see. I got it. You got the side. I got the uprising.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some of the roots of, like, you talk about Kool Herc. I mean, these folks were, and the idea of like the way we work with DJs. That's a lot of like influence from the reggae culture. You hear it in Busta Rhymes. You hear it in, especially if you're talking about New York culture, is one of the largest community of West Indian community in the States. A lot of those cultures are meshing and melding together. So to me, they have, it's Afrocentric culture,
Right.
the call and response, all of that. That's from the roots way back. So we have these diasporic communities that have their culture connected in a lot of different ways. So that's, hip hop and reggae is word, sound, power. So it's all the same way. Earth Amplified, I had already did a couple of, I did this one project, my brethren Jay Bless in Brooklyn. I met him at University of Rochester, actually.
Okay.
And we immediately, when I was going to go check out the school, that would make my decision, because it came in, we were freestyling. It was just like, whoa, I'm coming here, it was just vibes. And, we did Solar Stereo, was one of the projects, Solar Stereo. And then from there, we created this project called Earth Amplified. This was like 2009, 2007, 2008. I was working at Green for All at the time with Van Jones. We're doing green job advocacy work, environmental justice work.
Right.
And we were talking about the impact on the environment, climate justice, all of this type of stuff. So it was very much like Earth Amplified was like an eco hip hop response, an offering for the movement, basically. So that opened up that. Now Earth Amplified is now like a media company. It's music, it's culture, it's documentaries, it's music videos, it's podcasts, it's all of that right now. So
Dope. Appreciate that. Let's get into that. Let's get a little bit into, climate justice, urban agriculture and all of that, because I think, unfortunately, I feel like today, our people, people of African descent, African people, a lot of us have kind of disconnected from that, unfortunately. I feel like. What made you understand, how important it is for us, and what made you become involved and active in the, climate justice?
Yeah, I think philosophically, it just sort of makes sense. I think the climate justice movement created a space for this deeper conversation around what's going to create liberation for humanity. And that was at the core of it was this disconnection with Mother Earth, with the Earth herself,
Mhm.
and identifying the Earth as a being, as a living being. And then so when we don't understand, or the culture and society is set up to use the resources from the planet without understanding the reciprocal nature of this being that we call Gaia, that we call Mother Earth, we call it Stahavara, it's symptomatic of a deeper break within human consciousness. So naturally, climate justice, which was giving voice to the places in the world where they were getting the brunt of industry and corporatism, and through pollution, through environmental racism, through climate dysfunction, through really like extractive industries as well. It was a natural fit to really like what is the voice of the quote unquote global majority? How are these people in these nations really creating a place for themselves in their indigeneity in the world and context? So it became a conversation around systems, like which systems are life providing and which systems are take away from life. So Wangari Maathai is a really big hero of mine, and she was definitely emblematic in shaping my thought around the relationship. She had a situation where she was found herself in as a revolutionary, as an organizer, working in Kenya with the Green Belt movement that she created, that was really about empowering the grandmothers to farm again.
Mm.
And through that process, they got to bring a lot of power, and they literally, changed the climate through planting plants, planting trees, millions of trees planted by Wangari Maathai. She was one of the, I think, one of the first African women to receive the Nobel Peace Prize,
Yeah.
and was really like planted millions of trees and took over the dictate and created a fallout of the dictatorship at the time. So I was like, wow, this relationship we have with the earth herself actually is a power move too. When we can really create that allyship in the right way. So I saw that was a psycho-spiritual element to our movement building, and we need to build out more. And that's what took me since then, since that, my experiences with climate justice directly took me more into that place. With my movement building and with what we're talking about in terms of elemental activism. So we have a whole platform called Elemental Activism out of my organization, Celestial Church, which is underneath Esfera, and it's the rites of repair. So relational rituals for collective embodied liberation. And then so we have a tracking I call land magic, and now we go directly into these relationships with the land, with the elements, with the waters, and really go deep into that way as a form of social transformation. Like,
No doubt, no doubt. Appreciate that. Yeah. When you speak about, hip hop and reggae being, Afrocentric, African culture, the roots, of it. And also that's how I feel about all of this, when we're talking about being connected to Mother Nature. You know what I mean? That's the way of our ancestors as well, as
yeah,
African people. That's definitely the way of our ancestors. And sometimes we tend to forget that, especially in these systems of oppression that we live under, where everything is, material. Everything is materialistic, and that is the focus. That's how we determine, that's how we measure success and all of this. And sometimes we forget what's truly important. And also, same, in spaces of where I've been organizing as well, I sometimes realize that, we don't always center these issues as much as we should, because sometimes we don't understand, if we don't fight for the earth, then what are we doing? If we don't have clean water, clean air, if the soil isn't clean, there's nothing else. Like, that's the basis of life itself. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely salute, the work that you do, because I think it's truly important, and it should be centered, in my opinion. Any organization that's fighting for our people, that's fighting for liberation in general, should have something that, centers climate justice, and because it's really the way we are today, the eco side is real. And I think we tend to leave that to the side a little too much, Also, I know that you have EFAM, right? It's Essential Food and Medicine, something that you started. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so EFAM is so we have this organization, this umbrella called ESFETA, and then we have three organizations: Essential Food and Medicine, Celestial Church, and then Earth Amplified is the media aspect. And then so Essential Food and Medicine started 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, and with Sochi Bernadette Moreno. She's my partner in creation on that. And basically, we noted that there was a lot of talk about like just government medicine basically at that time. And then friends of mine were like getting hurt or even taken out for talking about alternatives to like actually to healing things and healing, working with COVID. And we were out working with the unhoused, and they were outside, and we were taking food from backyards, food that was thrown away. A lot of restaurants were shut down, so there was a lot of food that was just available to give to people. And we wanted to connect the dots to our mutual aid network. And we started to say, like, wait a minute, we're like essential, right? Because and what's essential in terms of health, in terms of immunity, is food and medicine. And we wanted to create a space for, the medicines of the earth, medicines of the people, and not be in this sacrilegious cycle where we were just throwing away people and throwing away things. 40% of the food that's generated is wasted. So to me, that's a direct relationship of a ritual that we do daily that we weren't really giving back to. We eat daily, most of us. And then so it was like, well, how do we boost our immunity through that? How do we come in right relationship really also, right? So it's one thing to eat food healthy, and it's another thing to be in relationship with our natural world, and that's a different kind of energy that needed to be cultivated, and awareness about that. And if we really wanted to be in this sort of yang sustainability space, and the yang sustainability space is like the unseen space. This yin sustainability space, I'm sorry. Yang sustainability is more like recycling, or maybe even our policies, right? All of that, but then noting that the spiritual aspect of things was a precedent to the physical world. So what's happening spiritually, what's happening with our ancestors, what has happened in spaces of land, what blood has been shed on land. The ritual got me deeper into the ritual of composting as a practice for liberation, and philosophically and in actuality, when we get our hands in communication with the soils and with the microbes, and looking at the relationship between that and our gut biome. Then our gut biome is connected to our brain, connected to our clarity, our capacity for intuition, our capacity to see clear. So all these things started being connected to me, and that's when I really started to create Essential Food and Medicine. So we did juice, smoothies, natural medicines, and now we have a holistic detox and recovery program for and with the unhoused folks and folks who are going through detox of some of these more intense addictions like fentanyl and meth. We wanted to create an on-ramp for folks to get the earth back into the system. One time I was in a ceremony down in the South in Peru, and I was crying about Mami Abu Jamal, and I was really like tapping in with his spirit. And I was asking, I was like, what can we do? Like our folks in the city, like what's the real route here for liberation here? And message came, we have to get the earth back into the people. And one way to do that is through the foods, through the natural foods. And there's something alchemical about that interaction between, the beauty and intelligence of nature to deal with some of these diseases in our ignorance, basically, too. So that just relating like that. So we do that work like that. That's on the ground work with the people,
No doubt, yeah, appreciate it. Talk to me a little bit, because I know it's not always easy, when you're working with the unhoused, as far as the system or, the powers that be, some might complicate things sometimes. What are some of the difficulties you may have ran into, doing this type of work?
Even the fact that there's unhoused people it's forced us to look at the system that we created. Like, even the fact that folks are considered less than or incapable of contributing to society, quote unquote, or doesn't necessarily have the same value. Or same with our prisons and our reservations. These aspects of the otherization that we have to look at deeper, because where there is the quote, like the darkness or the other, is really our access point to wholeness and an access point to collective liberation. So we work there first. We work with the people who were disenfranchised, that were canceled, that were thrown out, they were told they were disposable. So there's, just from the jump, that's sort of how we look at things. But then, on the ground, it looks like people being displaced,
Yeah.
Folks being denied housing, folks being in a trap of poverty, and millions of dollars being thrown into homelessness, and people throwing money at creating homes, but not understanding the connectivity between the systems of oppression, and also understanding the connectivity between them and these individuals and peoples and communities, right? So we wanted to bring some love into the situation directly from the earth herself. So the challenges look like from people saying that we shouldn't be out there.
Right.
They're like, you shouldn't be working with them, or you're harming them, you're bringing disease and illness to them, or, that's a big issue. Or just people just really just being really at the whims of the pharmaceutical industry or different big industries and modes of thought that were determining that their lifestyle, what they consider medicine, what they do as medicine, is something to be judged and something to be belittled. So we just came in and injected a little bit of just consciousness and awareness, if we may, into the space. We had people scoping us, taking photos, shutting down our operations. There was a moment where we built this thing called Cobb on Wood. It was a huge project underneath a viaduct, underneath a freeway. And there was one of the largest encampments in West Oakland, in the West Coast in Oakland, called Wood Street. And we just built allyship and fell in love with the people. So like a Wild West, Mad Max scene, all kinds of things happening out there. But underneath, we could see these are human beings, somebody brother, somebody sister, somebody father, somebody aunt. And it's a spiritual practice for us. One of our tracks and elements of activism is called Trauma, Tantra, and Activism. So it's looking at activism as a spiritual practice. So for us, it's like what we were doing on a small scale of working together to build this Cobb structures, Cobb kitchen, Cobb free clinic, going out direct and getting people acupuncture and getting people the things that they need. Just similarly to the Black Panther Party, rest in peace, Mutulu Shakur.
All right.
We really saw that as an act of direct action, and saw the healing justice is a really important part of our movements going forward.
Yeah, no doubt, man. When you speak about, people being displaced and all that, man, the Olympics just ended not too long ago. And, the amount of brothers and sisters that were displaced over here in France, where I'm at, specifically in Paris, man, it's crazy. Just thousands of brothers and sisters that were, moved to so-called, clean up the streets or whatever, for the Olympics. Is crazy. Like the way this system thinks of people as just things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You spoke about Mumia too, and I know he's going through some medical neglect. He needs certain medical attention that he's not getting, no doubt. Free Mumia.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So it's real out here. So I
Yeah, that's
definitely
interesting because every time the Olympics come, that's exactly what happens, And not to
absolutely.
knock our brother, our folks who are, they spend their life, training, practicing, to that's their spiritual practice, right? To be the best in their sport and that type of thing. But it definitely comes at a price. There's always a shadow aspect to examine, right? So that makes I've heard this before. Like when they come to town, people get displaced. Like we got to clean up the dirtiness, quote unquote, right? We got to. So they want to look good for the because a lot of money comes into town, and they want it to look good for the world, and all that. And then I think the Olympics would be interesting if we had an Olympics of restoration and repair for our communities, right? Like what that would look like is really powerful, where we have our folks who not necessarily they can swim well or whatever, but that's folks who've been working really hard for years on actually like providing for the community and being creative at it. And it's an Olympic road. It's an Olympic effort to really to stay committed to the people in that way. So
100%, 100%, man. So yeah, just to let the listeners know a little bit, one of the reasons how we kind of connected was through the brother, Keith Tucker of Hip Hop is Green.
yeah, yep.
So shout out to Keith Tucker.
Sorry.
Yeah, no doubt. For those of you who don't
Birthday,
know,
happy born day to Keith too. His just passed too. His birthday.
Yeah. Shout out to Keith Tucker. For those of you who don't know, Hip Hop is Green is a hip hop organization that, started off giving out, plant-based meals to children. Started off in the city of Seattle, Washington. Plant-based meals for the children, kind of like you said, also a little bit, inspired by the Black Panther Party. And then from there, started, inviting certain vegan hip hop artists, etc. I believe that's when you started becoming a part of it as well. And then, the 10th element of hip hop came to be, through Hip Hop is Green, which is health and wellness. And this was made official in 2016, I believe. So, I had the opportunity to speak about the 10th element in Havana, Cuba.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no doubt. In 2019 with my group 340 MS and also with a local organization which is called Reggae Soul. Shout out to Reggae Soul. They work on, urban agriculture and sustainable farming and all of that in Cuba for Afro-Cubans specifically. So I got a chance to do that out there. And now this year, 2024, I got a chance to kind of introduce the 10th element here in France with Pan Af Hip Hop, which is an event that, we created with my organization, the Pan-African League of Moja. So the importance of the 10th element, health and wellness in our culture, in hip hop, I think is really dope. Can you speak a little bit on that and how you came to work with Hip Hop is Green and all of that?
Yeah, man. I feel like I met Keith. I was working at Green for maybe like 2000. We did first of all we did this thing called Dream Reborn, a conference. It was like a green civil rights type conference. I remember Phoenix Shakur was there. So many people were there, and it was in Memphis, Tennessee, and that was 2008 when we had that. So I think around that time is when I met Keith, and we did the first Hip Hop is Green dinner together. So I've been working with Keith from the outset.
My fault. I thought you came in later.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of these ideas were percolating along the time,
Yeah.
So we all just started combining, and I'm on a board now, but really I was like, right there with him for a lot from the beginning, and then, but Keith is relentless, so Keith he was just on it, holding it, moving it forward and pushing it, and then so when we do the dinners, we saw the impact just in people's behaviors. In West Oakland, we did a lunch, and the teachers and everybody noted how different it was that the children were acting from having that Pop-Tarts and having whatever, or not having food at all, how their capacity to sit down and be in school and be in community, how that shifted. And then so it was about changing behaviors and also education. And then so it was really powerful to get on stage and serve food and rap and really just connect with the youth like that, to look at how we can deal with obesity and diabetes in a different way. And then so 10th element of hip hop, I remember because Prince died that same day. We were in Harlem, and we did, Phoenix Shakur, Afua, Stic, Styles P, JK, a lot of folks were there. And I think beforehand, Keith had talked to a lot of the, like some of the elders in hip hop and was like, yeah, we kind of need this right now. There's a lot of like pill popping, and there's a lot of things going away. We got to create balance. And we need to talk to this directly because the world is, hip hop usually is creates the world and also influenced by the world. It's always going to respond to what's happening. And then so there's a 10th element of hip hop was a perfect response. It was like, well, we need an element in hip hop because it has health and wellness, which also includes the health and wellness of the earth and planet itself, because hip hop, that's what hip hop does as a culture. It's a global culture. And it's we got to speak to it directly. So 10th element in hip hop is we did some work on that, and then now it's actually resurging again, just out of necessity. People starting to connect the dots, and there's a lot of artists who are a part of that community for sure.
That's right. Yeah. 100%, man. I agree with you. Sometimes a lot of people speak about being healthy, and this and that. And I always let them know, like, it's connected directly to the earth because your health only depends on how healthy the water is. Like I spoke earlier, the soil where you're getting your food from, the air. Right now we know there's microplastic in the air. So, the planet's health is directly, connected to our health.
Yeah. Yeah, there was this brother, Arkan Lushawa. He has a book called Deer and Thunder. He's an Andean elder from the Andes, South America.
Okay.
And he was discussing which really influenced the elements of activism work, in some ways, the land magic and art. And he was saying how, like, the mayor, quote unquote mayor, we would have in that space is the one who can speak directly to the mountain and one who could speak directly to the waters. Because if we could speak directly to and have a relationship offering to the mountain, really be in good relationship with that which holds us and surrounds us, and that which has been there before us and will be after, and really holds our families and it grows our food. And if we're in direct relationship with that, then that determines the health of the people directly. So that's a big part of the work right now, is exploring these relationships.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I think, the work y'all doing with hip hop is extremely important. I do think, the 10th element was key to make it official. And I do think it has always been to a certain degree part of the culture, and that's why it was kind of organic to bring it in because, like you said, like back in the day, we already had, KRS talking about beef, and we've always had like, people like Erykah Badu, you know what I'm saying? People like, even Dead Prez when they came through with
Be Healthy.
Be Healthy, man. One of my favorite tracks. There's a lot that's always been, and like we said, it's African culture and our ancestors were connected to the earth and to respecting life. And, a lot of these things that are destroying our health today are just things that have been created.
Yeah, and then, and really, like, for example, with Earth Amplified, we have a doc we're working on called Antigenic Roots, the indigenous origins of psychedelic culture.
Okay.
For example, because there's a lot of work, like my brethren, actually think he's out of UK, he works with mushrooms, and he's talking about the plant medicines, and even different medicines that aren't even psychedelic. In indigenous cultures worldwide, like we have, like with the advent of white supremacy, even white folks have been divested from their indigeneity, right? And the medicines, our relationship with the earth and the plants, and even just mystical states in general from different cultures, give us an insight on who we are.
Right.
And that's the biggest illness, is the illness of thinking, identifying with the ego mind. And that's the biggest hoax. And then so when we work with, in like this documentary, we're talking about sort of BIPOC, like remembrance and reclaiming of our indigenous cultures in relationship with shamanic states, and as an aspect of our healing and bringing us back into wholeness. We're looking at, like, the one point we're looking at is like, the corporate colonialism and clinical colonialism, and how we address and talk about disease and illness, and even at DSM, how we, folks who are neurodivergent or come in different kind of ways, different kind of packages, how we otherize them and then criminalize our people for having different ways of knowing and expression. And then so I think that's a big part of Earth Amplify right now, is amplifying the voices of the voiceless and really the voice of the plants themselves from a shamanic standpoint. And then we have Celestial Church, which is, we do emergence retreats, ceremonies, and it's a group of medicine carriers, artists, activists, and people and leaders, really, change makers who are interested in a different approach to transformation of our society. So that's where the elements of activism, rights, and repair come in at. And just to speak to that element of activism, rights to repair, relational rituals for collective liberation, the first track is Trauma Tantra Activism. It's looking at spirituality of activism, but it's also like how to not be a reactivist and how to be an activist. So it's very important. Look into what are the causes of suffering,
Yeah.
you know, and how do we like really be active in creating that versus always reacting to what the system deploys. And it requires like a deep study of self and a deep looking at the sensations in the body and looking at the meditation states where we can observe the mind and observe what is the observer, who is observing actually. And in there, there's a lot of liberation. So that's trauma tantra activism. The second one is called bridge building repair. And we're looking at the power of like the position of bridge people in the movement. Because sometimes bridge people get a lot of friendly fire. Folks who are bridging cultures, folks who are like, reggae is a really good example because reggae speaks, Rasta no partiality, Jah no partial, So it does it in a way that it looks at the roots of humanity and looks at these systems that have been designed and created, these concepts of race, understanding the impact of this, the ignorance of the mind to create that, but also coming to a point of reconciliation. So bridge building repair is looking at how do we make conflict generative? How do we create solutions from conflict so we create more unification versus separation? And there's ways to do that, and there's a skill to that. And it's a high art. And then so we're creating curriculum around that. The third track is called Land, Magic, and Art we spoke to, and it's looking at divination, looking at plant medicines, looking at ceremony, looking at this direct relationship with the animistic reality that we live in. And then on the level of consciousness, how we have way more power there in these relationships with our ancestors, with the land, with the air itself, more power to make transformation there than we do necessarily on when we vote or something like this, right? It's like our power has been relegated to those time periods when you can vote for this person or that person. But also, in thinking that's the only solution, divested a lot of power from ourselves, right? And from our community and the people that are in down our street, our neighbors, and the ways we can really heal ourselves directly in this way. And then so the last track is called Politics of Imagination. Politics of Imagination is really radical in the sense that it looks at what has worked in the future. So there's different, from the actual Afrofuturism movement to even folks like Dr. Joe Dispenza. Like we're looking at, well, how do we actually get into a space of embodying the futures that we want to see now in the physical? Like how do we actually resonate with that and become that and embody that, the revolution that we seek? And so it's a different question to say, how do we win the fight versus how do we end the fight, right? And our imagination has been politicized in the sense that we have been relegated to certain spaces of free thought, certain spaces of like, this is who is right and who is wrong. You should ally with this person or that person. When in actuality, our imagination is a big part of our human birthright, and our thoughts are things. So how do we come into that power and not to get our mind and our thoughts hijacked and our destiny hijacked by leaking all of our psychic energy and our creative potential into the system that the media has created, and these wars that have been generated, like where's our power at? So that's a bit of what we're working on a lot right now. And again, also the holistic detox and recovery program. And I'm always working on music. We just put out a project with my brethren, Quincy, called Rebel Wise. And that one, I should send it to you if you have seen it, but that got Stic on it. It got Blackamore. I don't know if you know him. Blackamore is the brethren, a reggae brethren.
Okay.
And that's just looking at, again, it's called Fully Loaded Altar. That's the name of the album. Okay. So it's like fully loaded. You already know just from the gates, it's like fully loaded altar. We really talking about what are our real tools here for like how do we go deeper?
For sure, yeah. I love that, man. I appreciate it. Please do send it to me. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. We definitely have to work on that. That's what it's about, liberation. We gotta get healthier. We gotta organize ourselves. And if any of our brothers and sisters are listening right now and that, know that or feel like sometimes they get, caught up in the system that we're in and, things get tough. And what would be some advice that you would give them in order to start a journey to becoming, into touching into this space of healthy living?
Yeah, like I mean, with health and wellness, I mean, it really is. I mean, everything to me is like a sort of like a path, a spiritual path. So it's like when we just look around, we take an honest look around and also an honest inventory of self, we'll see our illness is our cure. So when we understand self, we look at the disease as an opportunity to not just become healthy in the physical, but like from all the way through to the root, to the core of our being. And then the natural byproduct of that is healthy living. Because I could tell people all day, we can both, I'm sure you've been too, organizing like we should do this, we should eat like this, we should do like that. But ultimately, there's a process to it, to like awakening. And I think part of it is just being honest, being authentic and being really just noticing like where we are disconnected. And in that disconnection, a lot of disease happens, because life is what wants to happen when the mind is not looking, right? It's like the life is just always happen. Life is lifing. You put a seed down and it's gonna grow. Like you make the conditions right. So we gotta look at what conditions are we creating in our temple to let ourselves grow and be fruitful and be in line with our purpose. So one thing is to state is like purpose is really important in this way because it's that desire, whatever I desire, like in a positive sense. Desire is a really positive thing because it's just like, okay, well, there's different levels to all these language, but like it's like, whoa, like some people are like, wow, I just really want to art, I really want to draw, or I want to be a writer, or I really want to help people. And once we tap into that desire, our desire is going to pull us into a space where we can be the best. If we let our desire pull us in that way, we listen to that desire, it's going to pull us in a way that we have to step outside a norm of our existence of who we think we are, and then step into an offering, step into a service. And then naturally our service, we can stay up all night with that. We can get fueled by that.
Right.
And then that in itself is like an energy force. That energy force in itself is something that will clean and hollow us out. And then from there, so that's the first thing is just like, what is your purpose? What are you excited about? What do you get up in the morning and it's first thing that gives you joy? Those things. Then after that, things become it's about behavior, right? In some level. So it's like, instead of like, you can just eat it. Instead of like, okay, I'm gonna tell you all the things not to do. How about you just add an apple and add this and that? And next thing you know, like we work with people who are dealing with heavy addiction. Right? And we all have a different addiction at a certain level, but we don't really like shame that. We're not really we're looking again, that's also like a spiritual path. So we're not really trying to interrupt people to process with that. So we were literally we were right next to people, people shooting up, all that. We're not judging them because society does enough of that anyways, right? Yeah. We're just like, these are our brothers and sisters, these are relatives. And that love is really a powerful force. So liquid love, we call the juice. And sure, that operates on a certain level physically, right, to fight on nutrients, energy like that. But on another level, we're saying like no matter how you show up and what we're dealing right now, there's a lot of people who support you, and you're supported, and there is different ways to live out here. And then from there, folks they have options because they have to use up that addiction, right? They have to like allow themselves to go deep into it sometimes. Because really the addiction, for example, it's just really trying to touch God, right? Trying to get back to God. In some aspect, it was like, well, I really want to go. And they're just really warriors on that path. So we have a different perspective on it. But from there, we've seen people really come out and not necessarily go back and then create something totally, really beautiful for themselves and community can become a contribution. So they get purpose. They get that fire of purpose. So purpose is really where it's at. Then there's a lot of options out here for, people can research like ways to get healthy, supplements to get, if we can get that sea moss on, they can get, it's so many different things out here. But psychologically first, we want to address that because the system is inside of our minds. Like I had a juice company beforehand called SOS Juice, get the system out of our system. And that's what it was about. It was like, how do we detox our physical body, but also how do we detox our souls? How do we purify our souls? Because that's the point where in the incarnation of a lot of disease as well is karmically. So with essential food and medicine, we work on a level of like the ancestral healing, because I've seen people try so many things and they still end up with this illness they're working with. So
Yeah.
and we work shamanically too. So we look at it as like, how do we communicate with that illness, befriend death in a way, and be like, okay, like what does it have to teach me? Like for some reason I'm dealing with this substance, or I'm like really want to just eat this donut every day. And instead of like telling people, and I work with my son like this and children like this too, instead of like, okay, you don't do this, no. We investigate what are you getting out of this? Are you getting something out of this? And then so when we go and work on those ways, long story short, we have curriculum things we're building around this.
Yeah.
When we work on those ways, we can actually get underneath at the root level. And then once we have the root, then you have the whole plant. And then you can weed out things in a different kind of way.
For sure. Man, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned, the children, man, because, I myself, I'm a father, I have 2 young children, and,
Yes, I.
my wife and I, we raising them, 100% plant-based. And, sometimes it's tough because, it's not, none of their friends are vegan, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then the toughest part is obviously coming from the outside, inside they understand. And, my son is a little bit older, he's 8. So it makes a lot of sense to him, right?
No.
But sometimes, like, if they're at school and like it's somebody's birthday, you know what I'm saying, and it's cake and this and that, they can't eat it. So they come home and they like, so what I try to do is, I'll bake a vegan cake or something like that so they can also, but sometimes it gets tough, because at school and everywhere else, there's so much nasty shit that they give to the kids, man. There's no other way to say it, just a lot of
Yeah.
chemicals and all types of candy constantly. And I see children eating that every day almost, you know what I'm saying? And that's just setting up, man, setting your body and your system up for the future, for you to crave that shit, and that's how disease begins. And so, and yeah, and it's interesting because like you said, the answer is not just telling them, no, you can't eat that. No, I don't eat it. And, not having anything else to counter that. But, yeah, so definitely I appreciate that. Appreciate what you got going on, man. Here on the Vital Hoops podcast, we like to do this thing, book recommendation. Nowadays, the way things are going, a lot of people, are not reading books. A lot of people are getting their information from short clips on TikTok and Instagram or whatnot. And I think, it's important to go back to the books, and get a lot of knowledge. So if you have, any book that you would like to, recommend to our audience.
Yeah, I see one back there, that the 5 Principles with Stic. Stic came out and did a workshop with us.
No doubt, no doubt. Shout out to Stic, man. Shout out to Deb Prez,
Prize. What am I reading now? I'm looking at my library here. I mean, I think Belonging Without Othering is a really dope book, actually. Who wrote that? It's from, I forget it, John Powell. John Powell wrote that, and he's like the president of the Othering Belonging Institute out of UC Berkeley. And they do a lot of bridge work. And when I mean bridge work, they work, like, for example, like a bridge, and it's very tantric too, in the sense that tantra meaning that like being with things to transform it, like the aikido of it. It's very tantric. So it's a different way to work. Like, so this guy Daryl Davis, he pick up something about Daryl Davis. He helped derobe 200 KKK members, and I was like curious how he do this, because he didn't do it with violence or anything. Because I study Taoism, so I have like a lot of like Eastern philosophical energy, and then so he was playing music one day, and basically he was in a bar like in Texas or something, and then these guys started clapping in the back of the smoky room, and he was like, "Wow, we like how you play ragtime." He's a ragtime player, pianist, and then so they end up becoming in communication at this table, and then at some point in the conversation, he put on this card on the table. He's a card carrying member of the KKK. And he was like, "Whoa," like, okay. And Daryl Davis is a black man. And then so what was happening was a really deep transformative thing was happening where which is really not for the faint of heart. Like you really have to like understand your identity, but also let your identity go in the sense of like the concept of who you are and connect in a different point. And then so eventually what they ended up bringing him to the compound. Different things happened where folks had met him and there was like really these tense meetings they had. But eventually folks had to realize that the idea that they had of this person wasn't accurate just by example. And then so they literally turned in their robes one by one and 200 people turned in their robes. So it was job working in a lot of different ways. So that's the other belongingness too gets around that. It also talks of peacekeepers worldwide who work in war zones and the strategies they actually implement on the ground. Like how does it actually happen? So I've been learning a lot from that book for sure. Then also, I mean, I've also been reading a book, How to Have Difficult Conversations, because again, right now we're in this track we're building out called Bridge Building Repair. So a lot of folks come with us in our homes, our families, our organizations, city council meeting, all of it. And there's a lot of internal conflict in our movements, and a lot of times we bring ourselves down. Like we can't be effective because we don't know how to communicate, we don't know how to apologize, we don't know like just how to be with each other through charged moments and disagree, but also come to some relative solution. So there's a skill level that we need to teach our movement building about this. That's a big part of what I'm investigating right now. Is like, what are those skill sets that we need to learn? So I'm on that tip.
That's dope. No,
But I
but
see.
I relate. I relate to what you're saying. It's definitely something that's important for us to work on because we do see sometimes within our organizations or sometimes even communicating with other organizations when we try to, come together and stuff like that, we see some certain misunderstandings and sometimes we mess up relationships for things that we shouldn't have, not necessarily.
Right.
It's already not that many of us doing what we're trying to do, you know what I'm saying? So it's in our interest to stick together. So yeah, so definitely that's the key. That's a good one. Yeah, man, I appreciate your time, brother. I appreciate the work that you do. We're gonna have, some of your info down in the description, some of your music, all of that, so that people can definitely check it out. Before you go, if you can, again, like I said, it's gonna be down in the description, but if you can share maybe some of your social medias or websites, and if you have any last words.
Yeah. At AshEL SeaSunZ on IG. That's AshEL SeaSunZ. Pretty much that .com to AshELSeaSunZ.com. You can check me out that or organizationally Esphera ESPHERA.earth. That's where you can get the whole download on like all the works we're doing organizationally. That's big. That's the best way to contact. Yeah, and last words. I mean, yeah, thank you so much for having me on and just being able to just communicate and just share some stuff we're working on right now and where we at. And yeah, get on the email list. Go to esfeta.earth. Get on the email list. We got this trauma tantra activism workshop called a second arrow, but we got a bunch of things coming up like that. First arrow is like just life, right? The first arrow is just things that happen to us, life in general that happens, old age, sickness, death, things like that. But the second arrow is how we deal with it, how we react to it. So we put the second arrow in ourselves a lot. So one thing we're teaching is how to not be reactive and how to be a true activist, active contributor to liberation. So we're just fine tuning our arrow so we stay out of the traps. Yeah, like that. So definitely check out, all that stuff on IG around that. But, final message, just like, just take 10 minutes a day, just a deep breath, just following the breath, just getting back to center, just taking that moment to examine the self, feeling all of the emotions all the way through, feeling all the sensations, always returning to the breath, staying present. And more can be done from that space for sure.
Appreciate that, my brother. Yeah. Sometimes, especially with the work that we do, it is very necessary, because times get hard sometimes physically and mentally, and it's important to recenter,
Yeah.
My brother, AshEL, I appreciate you.
Word up.
Stay up, my brother, and hopefully we have you back on soon, brother.
Word up. Yeah, hopefully I see you in person. Come out
No
to
doubt.
friends.
No doubt.
Yeah,
That'd be dope.
for sure.
For sure, my brother Uhuru. Peace.
Uhuru.
All right. Episode 64 is in the books. Big up to AshEL. Make sure you follow him on IG. Make sure you check out his work, what he got going on. There's a few links down in the description. Make sure you check us out tomorrow morning on the Rise Up International Morning Show right here on Black Power Media. And like I said, go to blackpowermedia.org, see what we got going on. We appreciate your time. If there's any guests you would like to see right here on the Vado Hoops podcast on Black Power Media, let me know. Put it below in the comments. You can also hit us up, VadoHoopsPodcast@gmail.com, VadoHoops.net, BlackPowerMedia.org. Vado Hoops is for the people, by the people, for the culture. Uhuru.